A new series on end times starts now.
The program you are about to watch is part of a free series we are making available to you as a gift from Greg Fritz Ministries, entitled 7 Undeniable End Time Events. Visit gregfritz.org to download the MP3s and watch the streaming video for free by entering code FREE at checkout. Are you tired of hearing bad news? Tune into the good news of the gospel. Welcome to Good News with Greg Fritz.
Hello, I'm Greg Fritz. Welcome to the Good News program. We're going to start a new series today on end times. And this, I think I can say for sure, there's going to be end time teaching like you've not heard before. I have a unique way of presenting it, and I think you're going to like it. I think it's going to be helpful. It's going to be encouraging. So don't turn it off because you think you may get scared or frightened by the content. That's not the case. We are going to encourage you with this teaching and give you some teaching on what's to come. I've spent several weeks, and actually months, studying and gathering material for this series. And I have a lot of information, probably information that we won't get to during this time. So we've put it all in the study notes. And if you've never gotten study notes, if you have gotten study, you're going to want to get these study notes because all of the information that I've gleaned from books and online and the Bible, it's all in here and it's very organized. And I believe it would be good for your own personal library to have the study notes. So you can go to our website as usual and download them for free. Or you can call our helpline and we'll mail you a copy of these study notes. It's got the 7 undeniable end time events, and we in section after section, and we will have those in the study notes, and we're going to talk about them. We're going to cover all 7 in this series. We're also offering this entire TV series on USB or streaming download, 7 undeniable end time events that you can get and have this teaching for yourself. You can play it for a Bible study with the study notes to go with it. It's just, it takes a long time to study. Not everybody studies end times. And I really didn't want to do that. I didn't do it for me. I really did this for you. I felt like, you know what, my audience needs to have a handle on end time events. And so, it is exciting and it is interesting, but I'm going to cover these 7 right now so you kind of know where we're going. And from time to time throughout the teaching, I'll cover this. But here are the 7 undeniable. When I say undeniable, I mean all Bible teachers, Bible scholars, end time scholars agree, most all of them, that these 7 events are going to happen. What they disagree on is the order of events, the timing. And so we teach end times. I teach end times in separate events or units. And if you don't like the order they're in, just change the order. It's easy to do that. If you think the rapture is going to be at the end of the tribulation, take my rapture teaching and just move it over to the end of the tribulation. No problem. But we will teach on the rapture because it's in the Bible. We're going to teach on the tribulation. It's in the Bible. We're going to teach on the millennium. It's in the Bible. And it's part of our future. In fact, if you look at these end time events, we've got a pretty busy schedule coming up. And so I just want to take some time. This series, we're going to focus on end time events. And I'm going to tell you what I think about end time teaching as well. But let me give them to you. Number 1, undeniable end time. This is going to happen, and it's called the Ezekiel 38 war. And this is a war when Russia, Turkey, and Iran, among others, invade Israel, and God is going to defend Israel. So we call that the Ezekiel 38 war. I believe it could happen at any moment. And if you follow news, international news, you know that Russia and Turkey are really aligning, and these things could happen. I mean, Russia has invaded Ukraine for the same purpose. Ezekiel 38 tells us clearly that they do it for the spoil because they run out of money, and they're actually running out of money. And so this is something that it hasn't happened. It couldn't happen before 1948, before Israel became a state again. So it's going to happen between 1948 and the second coming. For sure, it's going to happen. Now, where you want to put this in that timeline is up to you. I'm going to teach it first. All right, number 2, the rapture of the church. And I believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. I'll give you reasons for that. I know wonderful men and women of God believe otherwise, and I don't take anything away from that. We're just going to teach the rapture second, and you can put it in any order you want. As I talked to one of my friends about it, and I said, the more I study this, the more I believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. His reply was, why not? And I'm thinking, why not? Let's just believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. I'll give you reasons for that. Number 3, the tribulation. It's split up into 2. I don't know if you knew this, but there's the tribulation for 3.5 years, and then it becomes the great tribulation for 3.5 years. But for 7 years, there's going to be a tribulation period on the earth. Number 4, the second coming of Christ. And we're going to wrap that into the Battle of Armageddon, which is the big battle of all battles, bigger than the Ezekiel 38 war. The Battle of Armageddon is when Jesus comes back and settles all contests and begins to rule and reign again. That leads us to the millennium. Number 5, undeniable end-time event is the millennium, 1,000-year reign, where Jesus will reign over the earth from Jerusalem. And then number 6, the great white throne judgment. We've talked a little bit about that in our Heaven and Hell series. If you watch that, we're going to cover that again. Just depends on how much time we have, but it'll all be in the study notes. And these study notes are the most complete study that I've done on all of these subjects. I had to really study these things out for this series. And so you're really going to get my complete teaching on the Great White Throne Judgment in this series. I also talked about it in my Eternal Life series, if you were here for that. But this will be more complete. And then number 7, the new heavens and the new earth. And that's our future. That's where we're headed. That's what God's going to do. He's going to redo the entire universe, and He's going to come dwell with mankind in our midst. And we're going to dwell with Him. So those are the 7 undeniable end-time events. The Bible scholars disagree on the timing of these events, but they don't disagree on the events themselves as far as I could tell. Now, there may be some, that are outliers that don't, but most eschatology teachers, preachers believe these things are going to happen, but you have, post-trib, mid-trib, pre-trib, rapture believers. You have some people that believe the millennium is happening right now. Some people believe we're in the tribulation right now. So they've changed the order. But I'm just going to teach it in this order, this way. Most of the guys that I follow believe it this way, and I'm going to give you reasons why, but I don't want to be too dogmatic. Here's why. On Bible prophecy, back in the days of Jesus, the scribes and Pharisees were experts on eschatology. They knew that better than anyone else, and their main goal was to watch for the coming Messiah. And they missed it. They were so dogmatic, they were so rigid in their beliefs that Jesus literally came and they missed His first coming. They were looking for something like the second coming and they missed the first coming. That means, let me just lay it out. This is what I think about end time teaching. I don't spend a lot of time on it, but I think we should spend a little bit. Here's what I think. What's going to happen is going to happen, no matter what we believe about it. So that's different than faith in salvation, faith in healing, faith in deliverance or victory or prosperity. Those things you need to believe for. And if you don't believe for it, you don't get it. As I've said many times, you don't get what you deserve in the church, you get what you believe for. However, when it comes to end time events, that's really not the case. Whatever you believe about the end times, whatever position you take, what's going to happen is going to happen. And one of the reasons we're facing all of the conflict and the unrest that we're facing in the world today is because, man, that clock has started. There are some things that are in motion now that are not going to stop. And so this is how I'm going to approach end time teaching. I want to take away all of your fear, all of your concern, all of your dread about what's coming, God has us in the palm of His hand. We are under His protection, and He is going to let these end time events roll out the way He said they would, whether we get it right or not. Now, I believe we're right, but if these events were to change order, we're still going to be okay. We are not going to be judged. We're not going to, God's wrath's not going to come on the church. We're not going to starve to death. We're not going to be, destroyed by fire. God is going to take care of the church regardless. All right? Now, I would also say this about end time events. Truths, they're not life-changing the way the gospel is life-changing. In other words, there can be people that are on total different ends of the spectrum when it comes to end-time events, and that doesn't affect their ability to live for God, do the will of God, serve God, be fruitful, finish their course, do what they are called to do on earth. It doesn't affect their destiny at all. So, that's liberating to know that if I disagree with someone else on end times, it's not going to affect my ability to serve Jesus and to please God and to do the will of God. So that's helpful. And that's another reason that I don't spend a lot of time on it, because no matter how you believe it, you're still going to have to live from now till then. And in order to do that, you've got to be strong in faith. You've got to walk in the knowledge of God and the wisdom of God, the direction of God, and all these things that we spend all of our time on. Those are the important parts of the Christian life to develop. So in that sense, these end-time truths are not life-changing. Like if I taught you on faith versus worry or fear, and we got you delivered from fear and worry, now that'll change your life. Whether you believe Jesus is coming back before, during, or after, the tribulation, or however the rapture's before, during, or after, or if you believe we're in the millennium or not, that's really not going to change your life in the same way. What we want end-time teaching to do is to excite us about the coming of the Lord. Because one way or the other, we're closer to His return than we've ever been. And that is positive. That's exciting. And so, anyway, I've brought this up before. The scribes and Pharisees were experts in the field of eschatology, and they missed the first coming of the Lord. And here's one reason why. There are elements of Bible prophecy that are shrouded in mystery. In other words, God doesn't want us to see it clearly. Salvation is very clear. Some of the other main doctrines of the church are very clear. But these prophetic scriptures, just like in the Old Testament, when they were looking forward to the coming of their Messiah, it wasn't clear. Now we can look back on all those messianic prophecies and they're crystal clear. You go, wow, God talked about the cross. He talked about Jesus' life, and He talked about His birth, where we'd be born. He talked about His trial, His betrayal, His death, His burial, His resurrection, and His ascension in the Old Testament. It wasn't nearly as clear back then as it is now that we look back at it. And the same is going to be true with end-time teaching. The Word of God's eternal. So there's going to come a day when all these events have come to pass. We're going to look back and say, you know what? God did exactly what He said. Now I understand what Revelation was talking about. There will be a lot of things that will become crystal clear after the fact. So Bible prophecy, part of the reason Bible prophecy is in the Bible is God wants to go on record so that you can look back and see how accurate and how He fulfilled His promises one by one. And we can do that with the life of Jesus now, with the first coming of the Messiah. And I have a teaching called Jesus the Messiah, where we go back to Moses and the prophets, and we talk about all of the scriptures concerning Jesus and His first coming. And it is astounding how many things were said about Jesus. Well, we're going to do the same thing with end-time prophecy. When we look back on it, it's going to build this case that's undeniable, that God knew exactly what He was doing and He did what He said. However, when we look forward to it, there are some elements of mystery. And I know some people think they got the whole Bible figured out, but when I read the book of Revelation, there's some mystery involved, and I'm just telling you that, you know, people don't agree on what part is allegory and what is literal. Are these scorpions really Apache helicopters, or are they literal scorpions? Or is that fire that's coming down a nuclear missile, or is that actual fire from heaven? Are these hailstones, you know, bombs, or are they actual stones? And so there are things that are not fully understandable now, because that's the nature of prophecy. And what I don't like, and I'll make it clear as we go through this, I don't like a lot of speculation. You know, if you don't know for sure, then at least tell us, this is what I think. But I don't like speculation. I don't like people to speculate and act like it's true, you know, dogmatically pronounce it so. You know, to me, you have to admit that there are things that are not really that clear in end time prophecy, and then we can agree on that. Now, we don't have to agree on what even the interpretation of it, but at least admit that it's more difficult than reading salvation in the Bible. That's clear. I can get that. Romans 10:9, I latched onto that. It was clear as a bell, and I'm saved today as a result of it. So you compare that to some of these prophecies, and in fact, even in Revelation, one of the things that surprised me, because I'm very analytical, I like doing things in order. I have 7 undeniable end-time events, and I've done my best to put them in order, the order that I think they're in. But if you read the book of Revelation, it goes back and forth. It'll be talking about one period of time, and then all of a sudden talks about something before that's mentioned after it. Well, I wouldn't have written it like that. I don't read like that. I don't think like that. And yet it's in the book of Revelation. Of course, you know, God's the author. I'm not complaining about how God wrote His Word, but I'm just saying it makes it harder to come to a consensus of opinion on some of these things because of how it was written. And it's on purpose. One of the reasons is, think about this. You don't know when you're going to die. And God doesn't want you to know that. He doesn't want to give you a day. If you were born and God said, now you're going to die on this day in this year, you would live your life totally differently than if you don't know. And so He doesn't give us that information. And so He did the same thing with the end of the age. He's not going to tell us the day or the hour, because that's information that's best withheld for you to live your best life. So, you know, he could have told us exactly when He's going to come, but He would have robbed a whole generation of living their life not knowing when the end was going to, and all the generations before didn't know when they were going to die. So we're never going to know exactly. One of the things that I've been intrigued about, there was a book written in 1988, and if you don't remember 1988, Google it. I know most of my audience probably remembers 1988 real well. Somebody wrote a book called 88 Reasons Why Jesus is Coming Back in 1988. And it was a big deal. It was a big seller, and people believed it. And, you know, I like to say there was one reason that he didn't come back in 88 because it wasn't time yet. So I don't know what the 88 reasons that he was, but the fact that it wasn't time outweighed all 88 reasons. You could have had 10,000 reasons why he should come back in 1988, and he still didn't come back. But anytime this happens, and usually it's some cult, but when they say, you know, the Lord's coming back or whatever, we're going to get picked up by a spaceship, people will give their stuff away. I've never understood that. It's like they give all their stuff away, all their possessions, and get it all, you know, taken care of, and then it doesn't happen, and then they're broke. So, you know, to me that's just foolish. If you keep your stuff and you get it right, they'll figure out how to divvy up your stuff. But when it's like when you give it all away, I think people do it to maybe force it to happen or something. Don't give your stuff away. Just hold on to it. you're, like people that don't make the rapture, they'll figure out what to do with your stuff. In fact, get a lot of my stuff, a lot of my books and CDs and stuff, and get this series and leave it for them so that, they'll have some good reading and they might be more interested in what we have to say at that point. All right, so here's a great illustration of the way end time prophecy or Bible prophecy period, the reason it's not so clear, and this matters in our study of these 7 end time events. In Ephesians chapter 3, verse 3, it says, Paul said, how that by revelation he made known to me the mystery, as I have briefly written, by which when you read, you may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Christ, which in other ages was not made known to the sons of men, as it has now been revealed by the Spirit to His holy apostles and prophets. So he's saying that Jesus was not revealed the way He is now. When you look at Old Testament saints and what they knew, they didn't know Jesus like we know Him now. He was not revealed. He calls it a mystery. In verse 9, he says, to make all see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the ages has been hidden in God, who created all things through Jesus Christ, to the intent that now the manifold wisdom of God might be made known by the church. So it was hidden, now it's revealed. The New Living Translation says it this way. This is Ephesians 3:9. I was chosen to explain to everyone this mysterious plan that God, the creator of all things, had kept secret from the beginning. God's purpose in all this was to use the church to display His wisdom in its rich variety to all the unseen rulers and authorities in heavenly places. So the entire church age was hidden. And there was a really interesting chart that I found as I was doing this study. And it was a chart of mountains. They were mountains of Bible prophecy. And I'm going to try to recreate this here. But let's say this mountain, my hand will be, the first mountain will be the first coming of Jesus. And the second mountain was the second coming of Jesus. So you had the prophets standing here in the valley, and they're looking at these two mountains. Well, they see this mountain, and they see this mountain. And that's exactly what happened in the Old Testament. They confused the first coming with the second coming. They were looking for the Messiah to come in on a white horse. He's still going to do that, but He didn't do it the first time. They were looking for the Messiah to be a conquering king, not someone who was a substitute, the meek, lowly servant king who gave his life, the shepherd who gave his life for the sheep. They didn't see that, they didn't understand that He was going to come twice. So from a distance, these two mountains just merged like this. And all messianic prophecy was, to them, was one event. What they didn't see was the valley in between these two mountains, this area here. What we call that is the church age. And that's what Paul's talking about. He says no one knew that the Gentiles were going to be partakers of the covenant. They didn't know there was going to be 2,000 years of church history in between these two mountains, the first coming of Jesus and the second coming. They missed this entire church age. That's us. Isn't that cool? So the whole New Testament is really devoted to this valley in between these two Bible prophecy events, the first coming of Jesus and the second coming. All of the Bible scholars missed that. It was hidden in God. And so as we now have the benefit of being between these two mountains, we can see the difference. Now we can go back to the Bible and we can look at all the prophecies that concern the first coming of Jesus. And we can separate them from all of the prophecies that talk about the second coming of Jesus, which includes the Battle of Armageddon, the marriage supper of the Lamb, the reward seat of Christ, the tribulation, the rapture. All of those things are yet to come, and they're at the other side of this valley. So we see things that they didn't see. And we now are coming to the end of this church dispensation where all of these end time prophecies are ramping up, and you sense it. That's what's got the world, I believe, in the state it's in. We're at the end of a dispensation. We're about to see the Antichrist. We're about to see the church raptured. We're about to see the end time harvest. We're going to see the tribulation. And we're going to see this invasion into Israel. These things are all in the works right now. And the closer you get, the more disruptive they are. And I admit there are times when I'd like to go back to happy days. That would have been the 1950s before I was born. But there were happier days. It seemed like our nation was younger and more innocent, and people pulled together more, and our nation was more patriotic. All the things that we see being eroded and disappearing. I'll tell you, 10 years ago, service was better. Don't get me started. In restaurants, in motor dealerships, in service centers, and I mean, service was better than it was 10 years ago than it is today. You're seeing the erosion of society, but it's all for a purpose. We're headed somewhere, and we're moving. We're not on pause anymore. And so this is not something to scare you. It's something, these things should encourage us. They should edify us. And I just want to reiterate this because this is going to be the theme throughout this teaching. God's got things under control. Now that doesn't mean He's responsible for everything, but as far as your life is concerned, you do not have to worry. And you do not have to dread what's coming. Yes, some of these things are irritating, but you and I are going to heaven, and it's closer than it's ever been. So fear not, look up, be encouraged, comfort one another with these words. Paul said there's a lot of strength and grace for the church today, and thank God for that. Well, we've run out of time. Listen, consider supporting this ministry. Take some time. The offering methods are there at the bottom of the screen, and use one of those methods. Send us an offering today. We'd love to hear from you. I really need your help with the TV time that we're purchasing to continue to get this program out. And you know what? The world needs to hear these 7 undeniable end-time events. They need to hear Bible prophecy in a way they've probably never heard it before. And you can help make that happen by supporting us with your offering. So I'd love to hear from you. Get the study notes, get the series, the download. Until next time, don't forget that the good news is so good, the bad news doesn't matter.
End-time teaching has always been controversial. In this series, you'll learn the 7 end-time events that will happen according to Scripture, and why for Christians, the good news just keeps getting better. Call our helpline at 918-749-7744 Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time.
I love Greg. I love his sense of humor. I love how he bring out the word. I just love Greg. Awesome man of God.
Immediately he became a favorite teacher of mine because he delivers the Word of God with such warmth and balance and great clarity.
He's just straight to the point and down to earth, and just to let go, be happy.
I've been in ministry years. I've never heard anybody teach like this, and I had breakthrough today.